You know how we're taught the Nazis were pure evil? Fanatics who came out of nowhere, built a war machine from nothing, and tried to conquer the world? Yeah, textbooks make it sound like Germany just bootstrapped itself into tanks and planes through sheer hatred. But what if I told you the real story isn't in Berlin? It's on Wall Street. A dozen American banks and corporations didn't just do business with Hitler, they built him, funded him, armed him, and kept the checks flowing even after American boys started dying. And the kicker? Some of them got richer during the war than before it. Stick around, because by the end, you'll see why your history teachers skipped this chapter, and why the same companies profiting from genocide are still running your world today. All right, let's rewind to 1933. Hitler just seized power. Germany's economy? Destroyed. The Treaty of Versailles crushed them with reparations. Hyperinflation in the 20s wiped out savings. Unemployment's at 30%. People are starving. The Reichsmark is worthless. And Hitler's promising to make Germany great again. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You can't build a military with speeches. You need steel, you need oil, you need cash, mountains of it, and Germany in 1933 has none of those things. So where did it come from? Picture this. Wall Street, 1920s. American banks are flush with cash. They've been lending to everyone, and especially Germany. Because even though Germany lost World War I, even though they owe billions in reparations, American banks see an opportunity. The Dawes Plan, 1924. J.P. Morgan, Dillon Reed, Chase National Bank, they restructured German debt, they floated bonds, and they made Germany dependent on American capital. Over $475 million flowed from the U.S. to Germany between 1924 and 1931. That's over $8 billion today. Not charity. Loans at interest, with strings attached. American bankers literally managed Germany's economy through the Dawes Committee. And when Hitler takes over, he inherits this entire system. And American banks don't pull out, they double down. Here's the mind blower. Standard Oil, owned by the Rockefellers, made a deal with IG Farben, the German chemical giant that later made Zyklon B for the gas chambers. Joint ventures, technology sharing, and the big one, synthetic fuel. Germany has no oil. Zero. They're landlocked. No colonies. No access to Middle Eastern fields. So how did the Luftwaffe fly? How did Panzer tanks roll across Europe? Standard Oil gave them the technology to make synthetic fuel from coal. The hydrogenation process. And without that, Germany's military runs out of gas in 6 months. Standard Oil knew exactly what they were doing. They had reps in Germany, they got reports, and they kept the partnership running even after 1939, even after Poland, even after war was declared. Let that sink in. The company that became Exxon gave Hitler the technology to fuel his war machine. IBM, yeah, the computer company. They didn't just sell punch card machines to Germany, they customized them for tracking Jews. Every concentration camp had IBM machines processing data, prisoner numbers, transport schedules, death counts, work assignments, who lives, who dies, all processed on IBM equipment. IBM's German subsidiary, De Helmag, maintained the machines throughout the war, sent technicians, provided updates, and IBM headquarters in New York. They collected royalties. Every punch card sold, every machine leased, IBM got paid. An American company profited from organizing genocide. They didn't pull triggers. They just made mass murder efficient, industrial, trackable. And after the war, no prosecution, no consequences. They're still one of the biggest tech companies on earth. Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford was a raging anti-Semite. Published a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent that blamed Jews for everything. Communism, banking, war. He literally published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a fake conspiracy text. Hitler loved him, kept Ford's portrait on his desk, called him an inspiration. And Ford's German factories, Ford Werke, they didn't stop production when war broke out. They ramped up, building trucks for the Wehrmacht, engines for German military vehicles, using slave labor from concentration camps. After America entered the war in 1941, Ford Werke was classified as a critical military contractor by the German government. And here's the insane part. After the war, Ford demanded compensation from the U.S. government for Allied bombing damage to his German factories. He wanted American taxpayers to pay him for damage done to plants building Nazi trucks. The audacity is breathtaking. General Motors. Their German subsidiary, Opel, made the trucks that carried Wehrmacht soldiers across Europe, made the engines for Luftwaffe planes. By 1939, Opel was producing half of all German trucks and 1/3 of all German armored vehicles. The Blitzkrieg that destroyed Poland and France rolled on General Motors wheels. GM executives maintained control throughout. And after Pearl Harbor, when America's at war with Germany, GM's Opel factories kept producing. The company claimed they couldn't control foreign subsidiaries. Translation? We're making too much money to care. And after the war, GM sued the U.S. government for $33 million in damages to their German plants. wanted compensation for Allied bombs hitting factories making Nazi war machines, and they won. Got paid. Chase National Bank, now JP Morgan Chase. In 1940, after the Nazis occupied Paris, Chase's Paris branch froze Jewish accounts, helped the Nazis liquidate assets, stripped wealth from families being sent to death camps. The bank operated in Nazi-occupied France until 1944, 3 years after Pearl Harbor. An American bank, helping Nazis steal from Jews while American soldiers died liberating Europe. Documents surfaced in the 1990s, showing Chase executives knew. They got reports. They made decisions. And they kept the branch open because it was profitable. DuPont sold chemicals to Germany. Union Banking Corporation, run by Prescott Bush, yes, future President George H.W. Bush's father, they held Nazi assets, financed German steel production. ITT Corporation sold communication equipment to the German military, had reps negotiating with Nazis throughout the war. And here's the kicker. These weren't rogue operations. These were board-level decisions. CEOs knew, shareholders profited, and the U.S. government looked the other way until public pressure became too loud. Let's talk numbers, because the scale is staggering. IG Farben used over 80,000 slave laborers from Auschwitz alone, worked them to death making synthetic rubber and fuel, and IBM's machines tracked every one of them. Ford Werke produced 78,000 trucks for the Wehrmacht. Opel made 29,000. Together, that's over a third of German military logistics. Without American trucks, the Nazis don't conquer France, don't reach Moscow, don't ship Jews to camps. The Holocaust required industrial efficiency, and American corporations provided it for profit. Here's the part that should make your blood boil. After the war, none of these companies were held accountable. Not really. There were trials. The Nuremberg industrialist trials prosecuted IG Farben and Krupp executives. But the American companies? Protected. Because the U.S. government needed them for post-war reconstruction. The Marshall Plan required industrial capacity. The Cold War required manufacturing. So Ford, GM, IBM, they got government contracts, Marshall Plan funding, and the files got sealed, classified, buried. It took 50 years for researchers to uncover the full scope. In 1998, lawsuits forced disclosures, survivors sued, documents surfaced, letters, memos, contracts, proving executives knew, proving they profited. And the settlements? Pathetic. In 2000, German industry created a $5 billion fund for slave laborers. Ford and GM contributed $20 million combined. And that's pocket change compared to what they made. IBM paid nothing, denied knowledge until the 2000s, 60 years after the fact. And even then, settled privately. No admission, no apology, just make it go away money. Now here's where it gets really twisted. This wasn't unique, it's the pattern. American corporations doing business with monsters because the profit's too good to pass up. And it's happening right now. Let's talk China, Apple, Nike, Tesla, all manufacturing in Xinjiang, where Uyghur Muslims are in concentration camps, forced labor, surveillance, cultural genocide. The U.S. State Department officially calls it genocide. And American companies? They lobby against sanctions, argue supply chains are too complex, say they can't verify labor practices. It's the same script. In the 1930s, it was, we can't control foreign subsidiaries. Today, its supply chains are complicated. Different words, same excuse, same profit motive. Apple made $365 billion in revenue last year. A chunk of that comes from Chinese manufacturing using forced labor, and they fight every attempt to regulate it. Google developed a censored search engine for China called Dragonfly. Would have filtered results, hidden Tiananmen Square, blocked human rights info. They canceled it after employee revolt. But the intent was clear. Access to 1 billion users is worth compromising on freedom. Facebook's algorithms were used to organize genocide in Myanmar. The Rohingya massacre, over 25,000 dead, was coordinated through Facebook posts. The company apologized, promised better moderation, and kept operating in Myanmar because shutting down means losing users, losing ad revenue. Oil companies do business with Saudi Arabia despite Khashoggi's murder, despite Yemen getting bombed with American weapons. Arms manufacturers sell to dictatorships. And tech companies build surveillance tools for authoritarian regimes. Cisco built the Great Firewall of China. Oracle sells database software to track dissidents. It's not identical to the 1930s. But the moral calculus is profit versus principles, and profit wins every time. Here's the brutal truth that no one wants to say out loud. Corporations don't have morals, they have shareholders, and shareholders want returns, quarterly earnings, stock prices. If doing business with a genocidal regime is legal and profitable, they'll do it. The executives will justify it. We're creating jobs. We can't compete if we don't. It's complicated. And they'll donate to charity, fund museums, sponsor schools, polish their image, just like Ford and GM did. Just like IBM did, you can build hospitals with one hand and gas chambers with the other. As long as the hospital's visible and the gas chamber's hidden, people remember you as a hero. That's the game. So what do you do with this information? First, understand that World War II wasn't just soldiers and bombs, it was financed. American banks restructured German debt. American companies built German trucks, planes, and fuel. American technology tracked victims. Without Wall Street, Hitler doesn't rebuild. Without Ford and GM, the Wehrmacht doesn't roll. Without IBM, the Holocaust isn't industrialized. They didn't wear swastikas. But they enabled everything for profit. Second, accountability is a joke. Most executives died rich. Most companies paid pennies in settlements decades later, and they're still operating, still profiting. The pattern continues because consequences don't exist. Third, watch who you give money to. That iPhone in your pocket might be assembled by Uyghurs in camps. Those Nikes? Same. That Tesla? Musk does business with Chinese surveillance firms. Your dollars fund this? Not intentionally, but they do, and companies count on you not caring enough to stop. Fourth, this isn't conspiracy, it's documented. Congressional investigations, lawsuits, declassified documents. It's all public, but it's not taught, not discussed. Because the companies involved still have power, still lobby, still control narratives. If this is making you angry, if you're realizing your history class left out the most important part, good. Because this story doesn't end in 1945. It repeats. Different countries, different products, same profit motive, same excuses. And unless people know, unless this gets loud, it'll keep happening. So smash that like button if you're done with the sanitized version of history. Subscribe, because I'm not stopping here. There's more, way more. And comment what modern company you think is playing this game right now. Because I guarantee you're funding something you'd hate if you knew the truth. Thanks for watching. Stay skeptical. History isn't over. It's just better at hiding. And the same families that profited from Hitler. They're still running the world. Different names, same bloodlines, same playbook. We just stopped paying attention.